welcome to Veterans Views Podcast from the JED TV studios on the campus of Purdue Northwest in Hammond, Indiana. Now here are your hosts, Connie Karras and Steve Bramer.
Welcome back, everybody. This is WJOB JED TV Veterans Views Podcast, and we have a wonderful show for you today. We have two very special guests. My name is Connie Karras. I am one of your co-hosts along here with...
Hi, Donna Dunn.
Donna Dunn Ostrander.
Yep.
And we have Steve Bramer. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great.
Great. We have a really great show. I can't wait to introduce the two guests that we have. We have Vietnam veteran, U.S. Army veteran, Norm Eichmann. How are you, sir?
Very good, thank you.
Great. And Mr. Barry Vadine, who has written several books, one called... We Were There, Stories of the Vietnam War, is told by veterans who fought in that Southeast Asian conflict. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Great. I want to thank you both for joining us for this podcast. It is an honor to have you both here in the studio. And we're going to talk about something today that's been going on in the country. The VA firings that have been going on. As many of you know, right now, that is a hot-button topic in this country. The administration has, so far in the Veterans Administration, fired around 3,000 employees nationwide, and apparently they're planning by the fourth quarter to fire another 80,000. That is causing a lot of outrage among many people, and what has happened recently in response to that is a rather, I think, unprecedented, at least in our contemporary times, situation where many people are flying our beautiful Ord Glory, our U.S. colors, our U.S. flag, upside down, inverting it. I see it in my neighborhood. I've seen it across the country as there have been widespread protests that we have been seeing in almost every city and every town. And I'd like to just talk about this and what's happening. So, as I was researching this topic for this podcast, I came across something that stopped me in my tracks and brought a tear to my eye. And we're going to play the video of it in just a second here. It's a U.S. Army Minnesota National Guards woman, retired now, with 20 years of service, of selfless service for our enduring freedom, repeatedly deployed, a combat veteran. Steve, you want to play that? Let's take a listen to that.
For a veteran to invert the flag, it's a statement right now. I did it not lightly. It took a lot of thought about it.
Retired Sergeant First Class Joy Marver earned her rank, serving 20 years in the Minnesota National Guard, beginning the year after 9/11. In May of last year, Joy began what she thought would be her final tour of duty, working as a support specialist with the Veterans Benefits Administration.
I felt the purpose again. And it wasn't for money. I loved the job. I was back with veterans, and veterans that understood me and everybody else, that the invisible wounds.
Everything was great until 3 weeks ago, when she got to work and sat down at her computer.
It said, "My access has been revoked. Seek administrator." Right then and there, I knew something wasn't right.
She was one of at least 1,400 people who were fired that day from the VA system. It was because she was 2 months shy of being done with her probationary first year on the job. She left the VA and got in her truck.
Hit me at a moment, looking at the bridge and wondering if I could just take this truck and just drive it over the bridge. I was planning on it.
That plan almost became real until she saw out of the corner of her eye the VA hospital. She drove into that lot instead and walked in to the crisis clinic. By the end of the day, Joy was home, safe, but in distress. And so she said so without saying a word.
Okay, so she was in distress, and she said so without saying a word. She is now flying our U.S. colors, a disabled combat veteran with 20 years of selfless service to our country, is flying our flag inverted, as so many other people across the country are. Thoughts?
So I was looking this up, and so the inverted flag was actually something that sailors did when their ship became disabled. They would fly the flag inverted, and it would show other ships that they needed help. So that's kind of where it started. You've seen this over the years in protests. When Biden was in last, there were some people who did it. The first time Trump was in, some people did it. So it's kind of become like a way of protesting, I think, without saying it out loud. I think that's where it's starting to come from. The whole we need help part of it.
But to have veterans on such a large scale do this, usually it's protests.
How do we know how large the scale is?
Because I've been watching the news, and we don't have time to put this on the podcast, but there are mass protests, videos of it, and stories of it all over the country where they are doing this. And we even had one here locally in Highland at the Wicker Memorial Park, the Highway of Flags, that is Kitty Corner, right? There was one there about 3 weeks ago on a Friday. I think there's going to be another one, but there was a major one on the U.S. Capitol, our beloved sacred U.S. Capitol, and all across the nation. This is happening, and so people are outraged. It's again, I think the inverted flag has usually, just as Steve mentioned, been a statement as to what's been going on that we don't like in this country, but to have these veterans doing it now on such a large scale, this is something we really need to address. Norm, Barry, any thoughts on that video you heard?
Well, I understand where she's coming from. I'm a Vietnam veteran, so.
And tell us about your service, if you can, what you're comfortable sharing. By the way, Norm and I go back almost 3 decades. Norm is a longtime runner in the Calumet Region Striders, where he and I used to run many, many, many years ago in Northwest Indiana together. And I think you're still running with them, are you not?
I'm running with them and a group called the Sunset Hill Run Club that meet in Valparaiso. And we run trails, basically trails. But I was in Vietnam for about 6 months, and I was wounded twice. And I was pretty out of college, when I got drafted. And when I got back, it was a time where Vietnam veterans weren't really honored. There was a lot of turmoil in the country. There were protests about the war. And when I got wounded, I went to Walter Reed Hospital in Washington, D.C., and my wife and my mother came to visit me, and we went out of town, and all I had to wear was a military uniform, and I felt funny because I felt like there would be protests, and there was. People say they were spit on at the airport. That never happened to me. So I understand that there was protests about it, and people were upset about the war. And I think people are generally upset about almost any war that's not World War II, because it doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people. But
that was the last legal war we had.
Yeah, that's the last. We had the Korean War, and it ended in truce.
Right.
Yeah, and then the Vietnam War, we were supposed to stop communism, and then ended up that Vietnam is after we pulled out, and 60,000 people per se died during that war, and many others came back with injuries and mental problems that.
Not even to mention Agent Orange, what that did to our people.
Oh yeah, all that,
and their people as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, so that's where I was, and I got a letter from the American Legion that I could join, and there was a lot of World War II veterans there, and they didn't appreciate my view of the Vietnam War, so I never did join. But I got some disability for wounds suffered. And right now I have more disabilities for hearing loss and some PTSD problems I've had. And so
The fireworks, I can't stand the fireworks myself.
Yeah, there's the fireworks
it just-
too. But on the thing about flying the flag upside down, I have a lot of people in the area where I live would probably key my car or something. So I wouldn't feel safe doing that myself. I don't want to cause a ruckus and have all my neighbors hate me. Well, some of them wouldn't, but you know.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
How do you think the VA has treated you?
I thought the VA's treated me okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go to Adam Benjamin VA. I see a doctor there. I don't use them all the time. I go about once a year, but I get my medication from there.
Okay.
And when I've applied for disability, it's been okay. I've gotten it. I haven't been turned down. Well, except for one time.
Do you think that it is better to have the VA there as like the entity that it is today, or do you think it would be more better if that money was used for a private doctor to see you?
Well, a lot of people, yeah, that's a good question, actually. But they want to get a lot of people want to get rid of the VA. They think it's but it's dedicated to veterans. It knows veterans' issues more than a private doctor would. I guess they spend the money and they play the doctor would be the same. But a lot of doctors, I think they don't take Medicare. Some of them. And specialists especially.
But the thing is, we mentioned about going to VA doctors. The problem is you have to go outside of the VA to get your claim approved to an outside doctor who knows nothing about serving in the military. So I think that's problematic. But that being said, they spent the budget increased for the VA by $89 billion while Biden was president. But what do we have to show for it? Suicides didn't go down. VA wait times didn't go down. Claims didn't get processed faster. So where did that $89 billion go? They didn't raise the pay for nurses. They didn't raise the pay for doctors. And if you ask, when you go to the VA and you ask those nurses and doctors why I ask them why they work there. It's because they feel compelled for service. They're definitely not there for the money because they can make much more money in private practice, which I think is wrong.
If you remember, when we listened to this video, she said she wasn't there for the money. It was devotion to country and her veterans.
Right, and I applaud that. Don't get me wrong, but what I'm saying is what do you call the doctor who got a D in medical school? You call him doctor. So, I think.
Wow, that's a good one. I never heard of that one before.
But if you're not, and this is not taking nothing away from the great doctors and nurses that work at the VA, but some of them are just not up to par. Because they can't get a job at a hospital because of whether it be their grades, their clinicals that they did or whatever it is. So they come to the VA because they know that the VA will hire them. If you go to the USA.gov website and you search for medical, oh my God, there's like 20, 30 pages of medical people, whether it be physicians, nurses, psychiatrists, anything. There's hundreds of, well, maybe not hundreds, but there's a lot of pages for medical people.
Yeah.
And they spent $89 billion in 4 years and nothing changed. That's my biggest problem.
I mean, my problem is, you're right. It has increased. $89 billion, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's so much money, okay? But when you look at last year, for example, over 40% of the budget went to community care. So it basically went to a veteran going to an outside doctor for care. Okay.
Yeah.
And if that's over 40% of the budget, imagine what that could have been used to get doctors into the VA system.
Yeah.
You know, because that's what everybody's waiting for, those specialty clinics.
Yep. I would like to see that broken down by where that money was spent, because you see a lot of veterans don't have access. We're blessed here where we are because we have access. We have Chicago, we have Crown Point, but people throughout the country that live in rural areas don't have that ability. They have to go outside the VA because their VA is 100 miles away.
Yeah.
You know, so they have to go outside.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's that aspect of it too.
And there is pending legislation to serve the rural areas better with veteran service officers with respect to not only numbers, making sure that there are enough, but with uniform training, which has been lacking. So there is some pending legislation at the State House, at least in Indiana, to address that.
One of the, you know, this may seem minuscule, but like when I went to the VA and I saw the pictures on the wall of the changing water and all these wonderful pictures, and I did a little research on that, and I found out they spent over $1 million on this art for the VA. And I'm like, really? $1 million? You could have raised people's wages with that. But what gets me is they have an untapped resource, and that resource is us. That resource is us veterans. How many veterans do you know that are artists? If they'd have reached out to the veteran community and said, hey, we want to put some of your art in the VA clinics, that wouldn't have cost them a dime.
Yeah.
You know, and the VAs would, and I know a lot of veterans that would have been proud to have their artwork shown at the VA in the VA clinics. That's just one little small snippet, you know, of where that money is wasted.
And that is certainly waste. That's waste and inefficiency. I don't argue that. And we addressed this at the 11th Annual Indiana Veteran and Military and Veteran Legislative Day, actually, when we went down there, Steve. This was addressed, how we need to tap into the creative juices of our veterans, and things won't change until we're called upon to do that. But you know what? That's one example of the waste. But what's happening here, and I am all for addressing and correcting government inefficiency, or inefficiency at any place. But what's happening right now, I do not believe that's solely what is happening. So that's why there is such an uprising and a protests across the nation, where there is a very extreme reaction to invert our flag. And I don't think there's any right or wrong. I think the woman who, in this case, whose video we heard, this retired Minnesota U.S. Army National Guards woman, what she's doing is right for her. And I'm sure she's not doing it to hurt other veterans.
No,
she's
I don't
right.
think so.
And those who would never do that and are very offended by that, and they would never invert our old glory, they're right. And good for them for having that opinion. But you know, this is a serious situation, though, because we really need to talk about this, because these firings are not just happening because these are employees who are not doing a good job. So, you know, I'm going to read this in just a moment. What we had, the Supreme Court's been asked to take a look at all this. Because a judge ordered that all the probationary employees be reinstated. But before we do that, Barry, please introduce yourself and tell us how you feel, not only about this inverted flag situation, but in general about VA waste, and what your opinions are on that, please.
Sure, I'd be glad to. Barry Vadine is my name. I'm, too, a veteran, but I was fortunate to have served during a time when it was relatively peaceful. So I was in from 61 to 64. I was a sergeant just before I got out, and the reenlistment officer contacted me, and he said, if you sign up for 6 more years, you'll get 1 more stripe, $3,000 bonus, and school of your choice. Wow. I thought, wow, you know. Well, while I was thinking about it, my first sergeant was a World War II veteran, and he came up to me and he said, you're not really thinking about doing that, are you? And I said, why would you ask me? He said, have you heard of Vietnam? This is 64 now.
Okay.
And I said, well, I've heard of it, but I don't know much about it. Anyway, he talked me out of re-enlistment, so that was good on his part.
Yeah, he had some good foresight there.
He had a good first sergeant there.
But that was funny because, you know, when I got out of Vietnam, I went back to duty at Fort Leonard Wood for a year, and my first sergeant said, you know, we're going to offer you a $10,000 bonus if you want to re-enlist. but I'm not going to ask you. You probably don't want to re-enlist, do you? I said, no, I'm happy to get out of the Army because I don't want to go back to Vietnam.
Yeah, I don't think any amount of money would have been worth that.
No.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I agree with you, Barry.
Well, and my first real situation where I had to deal with the VA was because of my father. My father fought in World War II and fought in the Battle of the Bulge.
My grandfather fought there.
Yeah, my dad was critically injured during that battle and spent the rest of the war in a hospital in London. And like most, if not all, combat veterans, he never talked about the war when he got home. He was getting, I can't think of the amount. It was less than $100 a month disability for the injuries that he had, and he got that for years and years and years. As he got older, he got heart problems, other things happened to him, and I was talking to a VA administrator, and he said, your dad is eligible for much more than what he's getting right now. So the last 2 years of his life, we got him full disability. Great. So yeah, that was good, and that was how I really got involved somewhat with the Veterans Administration, because I really didn't know anything about him, And then after I interviewed Norm and the rest of the guys for the book that I wrote called We Were There, I got a brand new vision of what the VA is like. And I don't want to talk about hanging the flag upside down, because I would never do that, number one, no matter the situation. I don't oppose people who do it. I just wouldn't do it. But after, the guys that I interviewed, one of the people in the book that I interviewed, he has just recently died, and he died from Agent Orange. And I can't imagine how many other people. The first person I interviewed for the book, lifelong friend. We started delivering newspapers together, and we were 11 years old, and we've been friends ever since, right? I knew he was in Vietnam. I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
And he was telling me, talking about Agent Orange, that they would...
Mr. Schroeder, is that who you're speaking of,
yeah.
Terry Schroeder?
Yeah. He would be out in the field. He was a sergeant at the time, and leading his men, and an American plane would fly right overhead spraying Agent Orange. He said we'd come back into the barracks, another tent, not barracks, it'd be full of orange,
Yeah.
And
they had no idea that what it would do to them.
No. They finally stopped spraying that.
Right.
But, in the meantime, I couldn't tell you the numbers, but I have read where more Vietnam veterans have died from Agent Orange after they got out of the service than died while they were in the service. So.
And let me just interject, I don't mean to interrupt you, that we have to, this bears mention of one of our co-hosts, Mr. Joseph Simonetto, a Vietnam veteran, the United States Air Force Vietnam veteran. He's on sabbatical, a medical sabbatical from the show. Joe, we love you. We hope you come back really soon. He was undergoing chemotherapy for Agent Orange that caused cancer. That led to him not being able to come on the show. He fell down the stairs last, I think it was September or October, actually. He came back, fell again while on set in December. He'd only been back at the show twice for the second show that he'd been back at. And then fell a few more times while in a facility where he was getting physical therapy, rehabbing for a shoulder surgery. So, and the devastating effects to his life and so many others, it's heartbreaking. It's just heartbreaking. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's all right. Getting back to Terry Schroeder, like I said, I've known him all my life practically, and he's had so many different heart surgery, cancer, prostate cancer. He's had so many things that the doctors say it's as a result of being sprayed with Agent Orange, So I worry about him and Norm and other people from Vietnam. Yeah. And I guess that's why I'm so attached to the Veterans Administration right now. So I don't want to get into because I'll be honest with you, I've gotten to the point where when the news comes on and it goes right to what the current administration is doing, I turn it off. Because it makes me mad, and I don't want to be mad all the time,
I can understand that.
Yeah. So, I just wish all of us could get along a little bit better than what we are. I don't want to see anything happen to the Veterans Administration, whether it's cutting people or whatever it is. I just don't want to see it.
Well, there's more people you have at the Veterans Administration. It seems like more benefits for veterans, because there are people that find jobs for them. There's people that do other things other than just care. They have job training services. That's what I've read. And so a lot of these people were hired to make it better for the people that have to go to the VA.
But the VA does have a lot of people they don't need.
That's a possibility, yes.
Like a lot of government agencies, they just hire and hire and hire and keep throwing money at the problem, hoping that one day they'll throw something up against the wall and it'll stick. But it's just not working. We have so many veterans that, and I've read quite a bit. I know of a veteran who got shrapnel in his jaw. But because in his SRB, it didn't say, service record book, it didn't say that he was in country, some clerk somewhere, didn't dot an I or cross a T, he was denied benefits. Now, where else are you going to get shrapnel in your face? But in combat.
Yes.
And there have been, so many people denied care. And I think that's part of the problem that we see. But what we don't see is the inner workings of the VA, the headquarters, where they have contracts that they dole out to somebody's cousin's uncle, to make $1 million when that's work that could be done in-house. And I think that's where we're wasting a lot of money there too.
I think you're kind of touching the unmentioned problems with the VA. There's a lot of nepotism. If you look at how many veterans work at the VA, there's 482,000 people that work at the VA. 25% are veterans.
That should be a lot higher.
You would think that'd be higher, right?
Yeah.
You would think, but it's not.
The thing is they should be reaching out. They should be reaching out to the American Legion, to the VFW, to all these things and say, hey, let's have a job fair, where veterans can apply. But if you've ever gone to that USA Jobs website, it is so confusing and so terrible to apply for a job. I've applied for a couple myself. But if there's a thing, if you don't have this form, I forgot the form number, then you won't get your 10 points for being a veteran. Well, I didn't know I needed that form. I thought when I said I was a veteran that, you would get those points. I would get those points, Yeah. So if you don't know those things, but how are you going to know those things if nobody ever tells you? It's not on the site that you need. If you're a vet, click here, So I think that's part of the problem is people go to that website, myself included, and you just get lost. Like I said, there's thousands of openings for nurses and doctors. There's thousands of on the USA website. It's not just for the VA; it's for the entire government. I know they have a hiring freeze right now, but there was thousands of places for forest rangers. So obviously they didn't have enough of those. But that's been 15 years now since I've been on that site. I'm not looking for a job anymore. But it's just so discouraging.
And that's an example of the inefficiency, right, that we're addressing now. Yeah. Is somebody now in this administration addressing that type of an inefficiency? I
don't know. The government look at the government website that they built for their own healthcare system. That was terrible. They spent millions of dollars on that, and it's still screwed up.
Now, I read somewhere, a couple of places actually. I'm not citing them right now. This is just off the cuff, off the top of my head. That if 83,000 folks from the VA are in fact cut by the end of this year, I think it end of September, sometime in the fourth quarter. I don't remember exactly when they're aiming to do this. That will bring the VA down to a workforce that occurred in 2019. That's 6 years ago. Now, that's already, as you mentioned earlier in the show, Donna, there's a backlog, a severe backlog. The claims are not decreasing. In fact, they're increasing.
That's just what I said. They spent $89 billion. The claim process did not get any more streamlined.
It's going to get worse.
And it's never going to get better if we don't fix it. But throwing money at it is not the answer. Throwing people at it is obviously not the answer.
It's part of fixing it. Firing people who are doing their jobs well. That's part of what the anger, the rage is on behalf of not only the citizenry but veterans. Now, hold on. Let me just bring this up, and then please share your thoughts, Norm. So after the initial firings took place at the VA, a judge basically ordered that these probationary employees, and not just in the VA, I might add, in other government agencies, be reinstated because the firings were illegal. They did not follow legal channels. So in response to that, the Trump administration asked the Supreme Court to halt this judge's order to rehire these probationary federal workers. And the administration argued the ruling should be put on hold because the judge didn't have the authority to order 16,000 probationary employees be hired back. So I'm going to read, for those who are listening and in our audience who want to look this up, this is an article, an AP article, that's dated March 24th, 2025, by Lindsay Whitehurst, Whitehurs, out of Washington, and I'm going to read it here, and then we can all comment on this. The Trump administration asked the Supreme Court on Monday that, and the date of this Monday that it's referring to is March 13th, 2025, to halt a ruling ordering the rehiring of thousands of federal workers let go in mass firings aimed at dramatically downsizing the federal government. The emergency appeal argues that the judge can't force the executive branch to rehire more than 16,000 probationary employees. The California-based judge found the firings didn't follow federal law, and he ordered reinstatement offers be sent as a lawsuit plays out. Now, the appeals also calls on the conservative majority court to rein in the growing number of federal judges who have slowed President Donald Trump's sweeping agenda. Quote, only this court can end the interbranch power grab, unquote, the appeal stated. Well, the nation's federal court system has become ground zero for pushback to Trump, with the Republican-led Congress largely supportive or silent, and judges have ruled against Trump's administration more than 36 times after finding violations of federal law with these firings. The rulings run the gamut from birthright citizenship changes to federal spending to transgender rights. Trump's unparalleled flurry of executive orders seems destined for several dates at a Supreme Court that he helped shape with 3 appointees during his first term, but so far, the majority on the 9-member court has taken relatively small steps in 2 cases that have reached it. Now, the latest order appealed to the High Court was one of 2 handed down the same day. While acknowledging the president can lay off employees, 2 judges found separate legal problems with the way the Republican administration's firings of probationary employees were carried out. And U.S. District Judge William Alsup, A-L-S-U-P, in San Francisco ruled that the terminations were improperly directed by the Office of Personnel Management and its acting director. He ordered rehiring at 6 agencies, the Departments of Veterans Affairs, Agriculture, Defense, Energy, the Interior, and the Treasury. And his order came in a lawsuit filed by a coalition of labor unions and nonprofit organizations that argued they'd be affected by the reduced manpower. Lastly, Alsup, who was appointed by Democratic President Bill Clinton, expressed frustration with what he called the government's attempt to sidestep laws and regulations by firing probationary workers with few legal protections. And the last point I want to make is that these firings were based upon a lie, and that is that these workers, these probationary workers, were not doing their jobs well enough, when in fact, many of them, thousands of them, had recent, and I'll cite that source, had recent job assessments, and they were doing just fine. So they basically all received a form letter. We were talking about a form email, electronic email, and we were talking about this before the podcast, Donna, that basically said they weren't living up to their potential and not performing their jobs well. And a judge ruled that these firings are based upon that lie. It's not true. So, thoughts?
That happens in the private sector all the time.
Yes, but that doesn't make it right.
Doesn't make it right. No, it does not. But one thing I want to point out is that we have had throughout the country, not in our area, but in Minnesota, they just laid off 600 steel workers. In a couple years ago, they laid off 2,000 steel workers in West Virginia. Nobody said a word. The one about the 600 in Minnesota didn't even make the news.
I mean, how many lost their job because they didn't take the COVID shot?
Exactly. A lot. And nobody said a word. In West Virginia especially, they closed this steel mill and the town was decimated. There was about 300 employees, give or take, that found work throughout the company. It's a big company, and they found other work. But how can you expect 2,000 people to just get up and move? You know, their lives are there, their families are there, their kids are there, and nobody said anything. And you know why that steel mill closed? Because President Biden refused to reestablish the tariff on tin. So because of that, over 2,000 people lost their livelihood. Not only that, but in that town, that was the major employer in that town. So not only that, but you have the auxiliary employment that goes along with that. The contractors that worked in that mill, the gas station attendants, the Walmart people, all of those people. That town was decimated. It was destroyed. And who's going to buy them? Who's going to buy those houses if those people find other jobs in other parts of the country? Who's going to move there? Nobody. Nobody said a word, you know. And I mean, I could sit here and cite sources and sources of people that I know personally that got a performance review that said they were wonderful, and 6 months later they got fired because they're at-will employees. And especially if you're a manager, you can be fired any day of the week. You know, my company just fired 100 of them last year to cut costs. So it happens. And is it right? No, nobody likes it. Nobody likes to get laid off or fired from their job because their company wants to save a couple bucks, or maybe their upper manager has a Jaguar payment he's trying to make. You know, nobody wants that. But we as a country have been complaining for years about how overgrown our government has become. But yet when somebody, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a Trump supporter by any stretch of the imagination, but when somebody comes along and wants to cut the government, now everybody's up in arms about it. So you can't have it both ways. You can't have a big government that we have a budget. Well, we don't even have a budget. We have a budget deficit that's unsustainable. Our kids, our grandkids, and our great grandkids, and our great great grandkids are paying on this debt. You know, this debt. We could take all the money from the billionaires today, and it would just pay the interest on the debt for maybe 30 days. Then what? Then what do we do?
Right.
I think part of it is when you look at how the politics has moved in the country over the past 10, 20 years, you're seeing a lot of people who join Congress as regular people and come out millionaires.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's gotten so bad that they even have websites that track how these people are getting their money, how they're investing it in stocks. Pelosi has one, another one has.
How do you have a job where you make $124,000 a year and 4 years later you're a multimillionaire? Multimillionaire. You know, so I think people are upset about it. You're right. So when they see that Trump is coming in and getting rid of all these people that are part of that apparatus, you know, that's why his approval rating's at like 50%. You know, a lot of people are, but now I have to look at the other side. If you were to take 80,000 and divide it by the 1,300 VA hospitals and clinics, you're eliminating 61 positions each building, each one, right? Where does the headquarters fall into that, Steve?
That's, I don't know. I don't even know where the headquarters is.
Washington.
Washington. Yeah, right. So it's, you know, I don't know. It's hard for me to look at that and think that that's not going to hurt the VA somewhere, right? I mean, but
it hasn't helped.
It hasn't helped either.
We haven't reduced veteran suicide. We haven't reduced the wait times for claims. We haven't reduced any of that, and they spent $59 billion.
Yeah.
So
I got a conspiracy theory.
Okay.
Because he keeps throwing out this 80,000, and it's a big number. Kind of makes you wonder how he even came up with that number, right? Mm-hmm. So I was listening to this conspiracy that this is all planned out already. That the reason why he's coming and firing so much is because he wants people to take him to court so that he can appeal it and get these going all the way up to the Supreme Court. Because once he goes to the Supreme Court, now he knows he's going to win a lot of these lawsuits. And what does that do? It'll consolidate some of that power that these judges have over what he's doing.
Well, and that's not really a conspiracy theory. That's actually what he's doing. So, and that was the plan all along, even before he was elected, Steve. So, he's pushing the envelope. The administration to just see just how much power he can have and how much we will cede him.
Well, here's the thing.
So, and
when one person gets power in our government, the next party that comes in has that same power, and that's what scares me more than anything.
I know.
Well, we have a president of the United States, not a king, and fealty to one person is dangerous, and history has proven that throughout the ages.
And that's what pisses me off about politics now, because that's exactly how it is. Mm-hmm. It's either your team or my team.
And it shouldn't be that way.
No way.
I don't care what party you're from. If you have a good idea, it's a good idea. Let's do it.
Yeah.
It shouldn't matter. It's just like this budget thing they just passed. It was basically the same budget that Biden had. But you would never know that if you listen to the news, because they didn't quote unquote put it that way, but because it was promoted by the other party, the Republicans, none of the Democrats would vote for it. The only Republican, and then Republicans are just as bad, because the only Republican that voted against it was Thomas Massey.
Yeah.
And bless him for doing that, because it was a bad budget to begin with. It was a bad budget when the Democrats proposed it. It was a bad budget when the Republicans proposed it. It was bad, but they did it anyway.
So let's look at what's really happening in reality now. Let's just look at the fallout, the immediate, intermediate, long term. Okay, so the VA is not operating efficiently. But nobody argues that here, right? Correct. All right. Claims are increasing. There is a proposal to reduce a total of 83,000 jobs by the fourth quarter 2025. Now, and it's uprooting people, right? It's about uprooting their lives, right?
Absolutely.
And many of them have been fired illegally, A, and B, with a form email that says that their performance is not up to par, when in fact that is not true, and a judge has stated that that is a lie. Okay, so how is it going to become more efficient then, with 83,000 less people, more claims that are coming up and being filed? The PACT Act of 2022 is opening up so many more claims for toxic exposure. We were talking about that earlier, Barry. How is this? And I'll tell you something, if this administration really does look at the waste, what we were talking about with regard to a very, very non-user-friendly website and not any easy way to file online, even if they were to look at that, that's not going to get fixed overnight. People are actually going to die and not get the services they needed if the filing time is going to be even more delayed. People will not get medication, and I've talked to actually veterans who have whose this has affected in this area, in the Chicagoland area. We'll have those folks possibly on another podcast, but we didn't have time to get them on today. But how is this? This is the real life. In theory, yes. Mass layoffs happen all the time for various reasons. Doesn't make it right, like you said, Donna. But these are people. We're not numbers. Their lives are upended, and these were people doing their jobs very, very well in many cases. So how are we going to fix the VA if that's the plan? I don't see how the end game is going to be on a positive for any of us. Thoughts?
I guess the only thing I'd want to add is I know a lot of people that are not affected by the VA. They're so mad about all the things that are going on in this country right now. I don't know of anybody that's happy with where we're at in this country right now.
This is just one small little example. Yeah,
everyone is just angry and they're upset and scared, to be honest with you. And,
I'm petrified about a lot of things.
Yeah, I've never, I've lived here for 82 years and I've never seen this country like this. Never. Scared.
Well, the Doge group, a lot of these guys are like 22 years old. Mm-hmm. They don't really know, I don't think, they really know how the government works. What they're saying, well, we have this, we're going to cut the budget for the Department of Education or the VA, and so they're just firing people based on numbers, and I think they don't realize the effect that they're having on people that rely on these agencies. And I think the more people you have at an agency that helps people in the United States, that's probably a good thing. I mean, I'm sure there's bad employees everywhere, but they should zero in on maybe performance reviews or bad employees, not based on you're still on probation. We're going to get rid of you. Of course, I'm an ex-union worker, so I shouldn't say that. But the union would say, "Oh, don't fire these guys. They're here for 20 years and do nothing."
Yeah, I've been a union employee myself.
Yeah. But anyway, I probably shouldn't say that. But it just seems to me that they're not taking account of what people do in these departments and how important it is.
There's a right way to do this and a wrong way,
and I think their ultimate way is they want to privatize almost every agency in the government. They're going to try to privatize the Postal Service, where I retired from. And they just had a protest in Maryville and all over the country about that. And
so the Postal Service has been a loss.
They've lost money.
Lost money every year for years.
Yeah, a lot of it, there's other issues involved.
Oh, there are. My brother-in-law works for the post office, so I hear a lot of
pre-funding, retirement, things like that that cause them to lose money. But that's mandated by Congress.
Right.
That's in the Constitution. And the fact that they want to privatize that is like small communities that get mail. They don't have to pay extra for it. Where are you going to, I don't know what stamps cost, 74 cents, I think. Pretty high. But UPS isn't going to deliver something to you for 74 cents.
No. Well, the thing is, too, is that they have a lot of stupid rules. With the Postal Services, I know that you're aware of. They have efficiency experts that come in and say this route should only take 8 hours, when in reality it takes 10.
That's another thing.
Yeah.
They do these inspections when I was at the post office, and so they said, and so you'd come in and say, the supervisor would say, "Why are you late?" And I would say, "Well, I had 25 parcels I had to go to the door and people had to sign, and they never take that in consideration." Right. Or I had 7 certified letters people had to sign, and they weren't there, so then I had to write a notice and put in their mailbox, and that delays you.
Right.
And sometimes the volume is high, so instead of fingering 4 pieces of mail and put in the mailbox, you might finger 10. I mean, that adds to it, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know the answer to that.
Well, a lot of government things, they invest in these things because there's, somebody's cousin's uncle owns the company, or they go to a seminar and they see, this great technology, and they're going to buy it, and they're going to spend millions of dollars. It's not just the post office, and they buy it, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work for the application that they bought it for. Yeah. But because they spent the money, well, now, gosh darn it, you're going to use it.
That's right.
And that's one of the things that's, in my opinion, that's why the government wastes millions of dollars doing stupid stuff like that.
Well, when a guy that comes and he has SpaceX, and he has car company, electric car company, and he comes in with a chainsaw and says we're gonna do this, and
well, SpaceX does what NASA does for less than half the cost.
Yeah.
So
he does have alternative motives, though.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Everybody does. Everybody has their own motives.
Yeah. And so he's in charge of that, but he's not going to cut the SpaceX budget or the
that's his
car.
He did cut it, though.
Yeah.
He did cut a lot of jobs at SpaceX, at Twitter, at all his companies.
Well, he's treating it like a private business. And government is different.
Let me pose this question. So there have been firings of inspectors general, 17 inspectors general across the...
It's not the first time that's been done.
Not the first time, correct. But there have been such mass firings of people. Some of them have been investigating Musk and his companies too. They're gone now. So that's that ulterior motive, of course, you're talking about. Why, if really only the motive was to make a more efficient government, did not we keep the good employees, the employees doing their jobs very well and in a dedicated way, and help them to make the government more efficient. In other words, not fire blindly, blanketly, and have probationary employees, for instance, there who know how to make a more efficient website.
Well, they're not going to keep the probationary employees and fire the long-term employees.
And they actually are getting rid of some who are not probationary. So there seems to be not so much of a rhyme and
reason.
Like
I said, there's a right way to do it and a wrong way. They need, like you said, you said as well, sir, that they need to look at performance reviews. I don't even know if they do performance reviews in the government. Like they do in the private sector.
Do you know that, Steve?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I don't think they do. I've talked to some people online, and every year as a manager on the railroad, I had to justify my job. You know, and it was really a joke because they were just looking for keywords. You know, like so many other things are looking. You know, my boss told me one time. He says, "You have 14,000 characters in each box. I expect you to fill each one." You know. So what I did to find out, once I found out how they were really doing it, they weren't really looking at what was written. They were looking at how many words were there. I just took mine from the year before and rearranged it and put it back in there. And I got a raise every year, you know. So I'm not saying that performance management is the way to go either, but it's a start. You know, if you've got employee A who is an exemplar employee and you got employee B who does the bare minimum just to get their paycheck, and we have that in the union environment as well, who are you going to get rid of?
I mean, you know, if you look at, like, I don't like the way that I've seen some of the things in government over the years. So when I see him coming in, when I see the president coming in with a wrecking ball, right, my first instinct is, yes, good.
Yeah.
Good. That needs to be torn down because it has not worked for years, okay? Prime example, education system.
Oh.
We put more money in per student than any other country on this world. Literally any other country. But yet we are the worst as far as advanced countries go, right? How is that even possible?
Carter started the Department of Education in 1971.
But do I think because like now he eliminates the education department. Well, he was the one that wanted to do away with transgenderism in schools. Well, who would enforce that is the Department of Education. So it's kind of like, I don't know, you know, like
a lot of that money will go back to the states where it belongs.
Now, do you think that's a good thing, though?
Yes, because it brings the education back to the states, back to local people.
I mean, maybe that's good
where it belongs.
For us, right? In Indiana, maybe that's good, but
why isn't it
kids
good?
in California?
Why not?
I feel bad for them.
Why?
New York?
Why? If it's run by their state?
Because I don't think their state can do it.
How is it any worse than what our federal government's doing?
That's probably true.
When Carter created the Department of Education, we were number 1 in the world on the planet with our science scores.
Yeah.
Now what are we, like 24?
Yeah.
You know,
Math,
so it's not done any better.
I mean, kids
when you say
they're actually moving on from high school without being able to read.
Yes.
Right. And when you say, how is it any better? Or comparing it to a wrong doesn't make it a.
No, it doesn't. But one of the things that I learned when I was running for office was that for every dollar that this state sends to Washington D.C. for education, you know how much we get back?
How much?
20 cents. That's it.
And where does the other 80 cents go?
It goes to the federal government to spend on the Department of Education throughout the country however they want.
Now, are they addressing this? Is this administration addressing that?
I don't know.
See, now that's.
But see, if we don't have to spend money, if we don't have to send our state education dollars to the federal government, we can keep it here in our state where it belongs.
Yeah.
Because if we have to send and plus, the biggest part, the Department of Education, the biggest part of their budget doesn't go to high schools, middle schools, or elementary schools. It goes to colleges. So if our tax dollars are going to colleges, why is college tuition so high? Why are people having to default on their loans? Why? Because the government's involved. Whenever the government's involved, there is so much fraud. There is so much abuse of the system. And if people know they're going to get paid regardless of what happens, they don't care. Yeah. You know, I'm going to get paid regardless of what happens, so I don't care.
Yeah.
So that's what aggravates me. I know I'm getting a little excited, but that's
okay. So that's all right. This
touches a button with me.
This is a very serious topic and a lot of
This is
emotions. It elicits a lot of emotions, and no right or wrong, and we need to talk this out. This is good. But this is the reality of what's happening now with these firings. On March 13th, federal judges in California and Maryland ordered the government to immediately rehire these terminated probationary employees. So, here's what's going on. Talk about inefficiency. The Trump administration has filed appeals, again, in both cases, but on Monday, the VA began notifying its fired workers that they would be placed on administrative leave for an unspecified amount of time. With pay, but not allowed to work until
that is so stupid.
And how is this the Department of Government Efficiency? And in the meantime, people's lives are in limbo. They're in limbo.
Yeah.
Let's keep having these conversations. We have to have some solutions-based conversations.
Yeah, this
Barry,
is good.
Norm?
The only comment I would have about that, if that money is returned to the states, then it's up to whoever is running that state at the time as to what they're going to do with the money.
Right.
Some of them, I'm sure, will spend it accordingly.
Right.
They should be.
Well, Indiana spends the majority of our budget on education anyway.
Yeah, but I'm sure there's states out there that.
I don't doubt. But see, I think it gives it better local control because we have people see their governor. Maybe not see them physically, but you know what I mean. And they see their state representatives, their state senators. They're more local. They're more approachable than your. Have you ever written a letter to your congressman? And you get what you get back has nothing to do with what you sent them a letter for. It's just a form letter that they send you. Thank you for your, for being blah blah blah. And I'm doing my best. Da, 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 da. You get a form letter back. But I think if we put that onus, that responsibility back on the states, back on the local school boards, to where we as the people have more control. That's the way it was supposed to be. That's the way our Constitution is set up. Our Constitution is set up to be where our country was run by the states, not by the federal government. The states are supposed to be more powerful than the federal government, and we have gotten so far away from that.
So far.
I mean, we were talking earlier about World War II. That was the last time we declared war on anybody, so technically that's the last time we had a legal war.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid and growing up in the 60s and 70s where Vietnam was on TV every night, and all they talked about was a body count.
Yeah.
And that was all anybody cared about. I mean, I've talked to veterans who have said, we took this hill and because we had to have, because we wanted this hill because it overlooked the supply route of the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Well, they had to back off the hill because they had to go over here and fight somewhere else because they needed more bodies. They needed more enemy body kills. So then they come back and they have to take this hill again.
Well, I'm going to tell you what happened in Vietnam. They wanted a body count. So there would be a firefight or there would be something happen, right? And so we would shoot, they'd shoot,
right.
and it was over. And then we were sent out. How many bodies can you find? And so we'd find 5 bodies. And then so the colonel would say, well, if there's 5 bodies, how many people were shooting at you? Probably 100. So they probably drug away the other bodies.
Yes.
So our body count would be all of a sudden 55 people.
Right. Yeah.
So that's a body count.
Yes.
There's no way that we killed millions of them.
Right.
We might have killed more people of them than there were in the country.
Was it Vietnam or was it Korea that was called a police action when it first...
Korea.
Was it Korea? Okay.
Korea.
I couldn't remember. Yeah. That was called a police action. Police action? We're sending cops over
we're going
there?
to try to stop the sampans in Vietnam from coming to San Francisco.
Well, that wasn't happening.
I want to bring up now a local situation and get everybody's opinions on this. This really touched me too, just like the situation with Sergeant First Class Joy Marver, the U.S. Army Minnesota National Guardswoman with 20 years of service, of honorable service. So this is a situation. with a man named Ricky Noschese, and I if I'm butchering his name, I'm sorry. It's Noschese. He and his wife Lori had to leave their jobs at a military and veterans hospital because they were fired recently. They were part of this, and this is a facility in Chicago, a VA in Chicago. So he, like so many of the probationary employees, received the form letter stating that their performances were subpar, and they were not, because this gentleman recently had a employee evaluation. So we do know that there are evaluations at the VA just by this article. And for those who want to look at the article later, it is called "They Were Fired in the Name of Efficiency Based on a Lie. Now the VA is paying them not to work." And this is a spokesman article by Orion Donovan Smith. It is dated March 23rd, 2025, for those who want to look it up. Now, do you remember when Elon Musk had mass emailed employees to say what they to basically say what they did and within their jobs, and to basically justify their jobs and what they were planning to, I think he said kind of bullet point a few things, 3 things that you were planning to do with on your job this week, and many of the department heads said to ignore that email. Well, this gentleman here, with the help, Mr. Lord, let me get his name here, Ricky Noschese, he actually responded to that with the help of his boss. And it was apparently, according to the government, too long of a response for them to even listen to him. So he wrote a detailed 4-page document to justify his employment, and he described how he had helped save taxpayers more than $10 million by using his nearly 2 decades of experience as an HVAC technician to identify efficiencies and find a cost-effective way to extend the life of the air handling units that circulate through the 43 building, 1.5 million square foot Lovell campus, VA Lovell, Lovell campus that serves 90,000 patients a year, including veterans, active duty service members, and their dependents, along with nearly 50,000 recruits who pass through the Navy's only boot camp each year at the adjacent Naval Station Great Lakes. And so what happened was the government responded, "This is way too long a letter. Respond in 3 sentences. What justifies your job?"
Wow.
So he was asked, he responded, and still he was not listened to. So, I don't know where we're going with all of this. I don't know. So, yeah. It remains to be seen. It'll be. I'm looking forward to a SCOTUS ruling if they do in fact rule on these 2
SCOTUS
cases.
doesn't offer rulings; they offer opinions.
Opinions, okay. Offer opinions on judges' rulings.
No, they offer opinions according to the Constitution. They don't do rulings. Kings do rulings.
That's a good point to make. I'm hoping we don't have a ruling coming down anytime from this administration.
Everybody says the Supreme Court rules, but they do not. They offer opinions.
An opinion.
It's their opinions.
I never knew that.
Yep.
No, because I've been using, thank you, Donna, the incorrect terminology, because I've heard other people say that quite often.
I went to a very wonderful class with Chris Ann Hall, who's a constitutional lawyer. I would love to get her on the show sometime. But anyway, I learned a lot about the Constitution and how we're so far from it. And that was one of the first things she pointed out when we were talking about the Supreme Court. And she said the Supreme Court does not offer rulings. Kings and kings, monarchs offer rulings. The Supreme Court is their opinion in accordance with the Constitution.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, it will be
Makes
interesting
sense.
to know what opinion they render, and I don't know when they're going to do it. They also can choose not to take these cases up.
Yeah, I don't understand that part. How they can? There's all kinds of cases that get thrown up to the Supreme Court every year, and they refuse to hear a lot, whether it's a crime case, white collar crime, or a murder or whatever. There's cases all the time that they refuse to hear.
If they refuse to hear these cases,
they get thrown back to
the
lower
courts, then to be
rehashed. Yeah.
And in the meantime, these people's lives hang further in the
I hate that.
Limbo.
But it's hard reducing this. Mm-hmm. It's hard when a company goes through a reduction in workforce. It's hard when any employment entity, whether it be the government or the private sector, goes through a reduction in force. But it happens. Mm-hmm. It happens a lot. Mm-hmm. And it's sad and it's terrible. And there are a lot of reports of people who, they have to do what they have to do to survive, and whether it's, go on welfare, whether it's you have to take a lower paying job for a while till you find something that's up to your qualifications. Mm-hmm. But that's what we do. That's what we do as Americans. We are tough. And we do what we have to do to get through it. I mean, look at all the stuff we've been through our lives, through your gentlemen's lives. Whether it's combat, whether it's terrorist attacks, whether it's being fired from your job, whether it's being laid off from your job. But Americans are tough, and we're going to get through this.
We will get through this, but people are going to
suffer
by this.
People are going to suffer. I'm not, there's no way around that. Whether it's the government getting rid of employees or the private sector getting rid of employees, people suffer. Caterpillar took their plant to another country, and all those thousands of people lost their jobs and decimated the town. So that wasn't good either. I just read an article this morning about I think it's Honda is going to build a plant here in Indiana, which I think is great. Is it going to happen overnight? Absolutely not. Plants take 2 to 3 years to build. The factory I mentioned in West Virginia, they're doing a pivot. They are going to start making electrical transformers. I don't know if they're the ones that go on telephone poles or if there's something for electric vehicles. I don't understand the electrical. I'm not an electrician by any stretch. But they've pivoted and they're redoing that. They're retooling their plant. Now, is that going to happen tomorrow? No, it'll happen. They're working on it right now. It's supposed to happen within the next year. So none of this is going to happen overnight, fixing everything. But I think the biggest thing that upsets me, and I know I've said this before, I've said it on the radio show, I miss the country we had after 9/11. I miss that we were all together. We all came together for one purpose. Mm-hmm. And I think if we, the American people, come together for one purpose, there is nothing we can't accomplish. Mm-hmm. We stopped our government from bombing a country when Obama was president. Why? Because we came together as a people and said, we do not want this. And we don't realize the power that we have. We have the power. We control the power. But we need to take that power back. And we need to come together and work together. And but the part of the problem is we have senators and congressmen who everybody says they suck, they don't do anything. But guess what? They may have a 10% approval rating, but they have a 90% reelection rate. That's part of the problem. Because it doesn't matter what they do. Again, like I said before, they know they're going to get reelected. Mm-hmm.
Excellent points.
Yeah.
And 9/11, may I? Excuse me, Steve, if you're
good.
Please. 9/11. Guess who was inspired to selflessly serve her country post 9/11? Sergeant First Class Joy Marver, the 20-year disabled combat veteran that we heard at the beginning of this show, who nearly took her life after being fired with a form letter, a form email.
Right.
And thank you, Universe God, that she didn't. But
how many post 9/11 veterans killed themselves?
Right. Not only veterans, but families of veterans.
22 a day.
Yep.
For the first time in our nation's history, we've lost more veterans to suicide than we have to combat.
And The numbers are very conservative because first off, they're not reported.
No.
There's no way to conclusively know how many are suicides. Yeah, because some are made to look like accidents. Others are just the families. There's so much searing, horrible, unspeakable pain that they don't even talk about it. They don't report it, and it's very difficult to get that information. So I think it's more than 22 a day, especially post pandemic, when we have not recovered from so many situations. Mental illness is off the charts, substance abuse disorder. We're not doing enough. But yeah, what are we going to do? Closing thoughts here for everybody. Gentlemen, you have experienced our country longer, a few years longer than everybody else in this room individually. What are your thoughts on how we can come together as a country to get past all of this upheaval and division?
Part of the division is, now I'm going to say media. There's, if you turn on, say, Fox News, sometimes they don't report. So there was something that happens when a Republican does something. Maybe we turn on MSNBC, it doesn't report what Democrat. It used to be there was Walter Cronkite. Yeah. There was like 5 stations or whatever.
Yeah.
And
right.
And the news was non-biased, and the fairness doctrine went away, and all these things. There's podcasts. There's all kinds of things where people only listen to their echo chamber, and I think that's part of why people are so divided in this country. Truth has become what you hear, and it may not be truth. There is no solid truth.
And what doesn't help is that mainstream media, such as AP, Reuters, NPR, has been barred from the White House. That's alarming.
Right. That's right. And what actually is truth is suppressed.
Yeah, you have to go to alternative media to find out what's really going on.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah.
Barry?
Well, I agree with Norm 100%. You know, yeah, I don't know what it's going to take. I really don't. I'm like you. I think eventually we'll somehow overcome this. But boy, I mentioned this before. I've just never seen this country like this. I haven't. I don't care if you go in the grocery store or the gas station. People are talking about all this, you know. And they're not talking nicely about it. They're scared to death, you know.
Every 80 or 90 years, this country cycles through this type of a situation. This is on a different level, though, I think. But I do agree with Donna. Our resolve as humans has not changed, and we will prevail.
Hope you're right.
Yeah, me too.
Well, people talk about the Civil War. There could be a Civil War.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to work. My next door neighbor has a Trump flag. I have a Biden flag but I don't display it for every day after the election.
Yeah.
But they disagree with me. We'd only talk. And so what happens? He takes a gun and shoots at me.
Right. I think we need to get back to, in my opinion, civil discussions. It's too easy to go online and say you suck, blah blah blah. Right. You know, but have adult conversations with people you disagree with.
In-person conversations.
You know, and I've had adult conversations. That's what I call them anyway, with people I disagree with on different levels, but. There's been times when I have those adult conversations with people that believe different things that I do, where I've learned something from them. I've taken something from them, and they've taken something from me. Yeah. And that's how we come together, is by having those types of adult conversations. We need to have conversations to listen, not to talk.
Don't demonize other people.
No.
Try to find the common thread, because when we demonize, it devolves, and you lose everything, and it gets worse.
Don't pay attention to the online media.
Yeah, it's all about ratings. I will say this. Excuse me. I know you're going to make a point, Steve. I do have to say this. Would I fly a flag? Would I invert a flag? I have not done so at this point, because I'll tell you why. Unlike First Sergeant First Class Joy Marver, who we heard at the beginning of this podcast talk about her situation, this situation with the firings has not yet affected me. Right?
Yeah.
It might someday. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. If it ever does, I very well might invert that flag. I don't know. But I can tell you this, and this is, I do not hold in contempt anybody who does it. I do not hold in contempt anybody who does not. There is no right or wrong here. What you're doing and speaking from your conscience and if you're making a passionate plea from your very soul about what needs to be done to make this a better world, if you've been harmed in some way and you need to make a statement, do it, as long as it's not harming someone else. And I do not believe that flying somebody's flag on their own property upside down is harming somebody.
No.
It may very well offend somebody, and I can appreciate that, because so many people find that very distasteful, and I appreciate that. I respect that. But we have to speak from our souls, our consciences, but we need to stop attacking each other. And until we do that, I don't know how we're going to come together, because we all really want the same things, right, Steve? We want to be safe. We want to have safety, security. We want to have freedom. We want to enjoy the pursuits of life, liberty, and justice, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I say burn it all down.
Oh, gosh.
We laugh because we know you're kidding.
Yeah. Well, thank you. This has been a wonderful podcast. I appreciate everybody for being here. Mr. Norm Eichmann, United States Army Vietnam veteran. My dear friend, thank you. Thank you for taking time to come and be a part of this very, very important discussion. Mr. Barry Vadine, author of the book Barry J. Vadine, We Were There. Stories of the Vietnam War is told by veterans who fought in that Southeast Asian conflict.
So where would they find this book, Barry?
Are you on Amazon?
Oh, it's on Amazon. Yeah.
Okay.
And you can find My Heroes, which is the book I wrote about World War II. But here's the thing about that. The company that published that book for me has been bought by Amazon.
Oh.
And since Amazon bought it, they have the books. I can't get it at a discount, and they don't pay me royalties for the books they sell. Yeah.
So get it from you directly, maybe? Are they in any stores around here in Northwest India? Okay.
No. That book came out in, 2004, I think it was, so a long time ago. But I personally, I sold 1,000 copies of it myself, and it's been sold online.
I'll talk to you after the show to get a copy directly from you so that you...
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then, of course, Donna, thank you so much. Donna, we miss you. We miss you.
When I'm not working.
You're working so much, you're not on the radio show anymore. I'm so glad you could make it to this, though. It's wonderful to see you. When will you be back on the radio show?
I will have to look at my calendar. We have somebody out on maternity leave. He is not going to be back for another few weeks, so I have to look at my calendar, and my schedule is all over the place right now.
Okay, well, we can't wait till you come back. And Mr. Steve Bramer, who's doubling as the producer right now in the control room, thank you so much for being here. Do you have any closing thoughts before we say goodbye?
Nope.
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 All right.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. This is the United States of America.
Hoorah.
Hoorah. And go out and be kind.
Good night, Chesty,
All right?
wherever you are.
Good night, wherever you are. We'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
You've been listening to Veterans Views podcast from the Jet TV studios on the campus of Purdue Northwest in Hammond, Indiana. Thank you for listening.